Hey everybody, it's ChristopherNotWalken. Welcome to the Dirty Nerdy Show. And today I have, when I usually say I have a special guest, but this time I got a special guest, y'all. Like Miss Mia Boca herself. You know what I'm saying? Jill Jones is in the building, y'all. What's going on, Jill Jones?
Everything's going.
That's man, good. y'all don't understand like how nervous I've been. Just the past, like, since she said yes. Oh my God, the lady cab driver herself. You know, first thing I want to ask you is, like, what's it like to have a Prince song about you?
Oh, now I guess it's quite it's sweet. It's very it means a lot to me because it's just one other aspect of, you know, it sort of affirms the musical marriage that he and I had. And yeah. I think with a lot of his collaborators and things, I think that all of these works that we do in this business or in any art form, you have musical collaborations. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But yeah, I've had some great music marriages with people, but he was by far one of the most incredible ones I've ever had. I mean, there was nothing that we wouldn't do on record. So to have a no holds, no bars, no limits, just the way he worked.
I've heard some of that Apollonia stuff, so I know there's nothing y'all wouldn't do on record.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's complete comfort zone, safe space.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just so interesting because nowadays you kind of see people doing collaborations and it always seems a little contrived because the great thing about Prince is that he would have collaborations with people and you go, well, how did that happen? And a lot of times people are like, oh, was that a girlfriend or this or that? And for me, it's like, it doesn't really matter because when something is holistic and organic, whatever draws you to it,
yeah,
you have to be receptive and honest and really go there. And then it's true for however long it lasts. You know, it's just the way it is. It's not like it's set up to get a bunch of likes, you know. And I think that like world that came into effect later as Prince experienced the liking and the Twitters and all these things. I think that even for anybody with the mind, that capacity that he had, it's an insult to a real artist, a real musician, to have things based upon such vapid entertainment, and he was so much more than that.
He was the greatest to ever do this, man. Like, I'm mind blown by the level of output that, you know, he just was cranking out record after record after record. And especially in the years that you were around.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you came around Dirty Mind, right?
Yes. I met him at that time, and we were friends for 2 years and then joined up with everybody.
Yeah, because you were on tour with Tina Marie, right?
Yes, I was.
Yeah. What was that like? Because I heard you were on tour with Rick James, and that's got to be... Yeah. That's got to be crazy.
That was crazy. I mean, you know, the Rick James tour was, you know, Rick I'd grown up with also because in my family, my mother managed Tina. So a lot of these people would come to our houses and we'd have barbecues and family dinners. And the Gordy family was a huge part of my life because my stepfather was Fuller Gordy, Barry's brother. And so the exposure to high-profile people was, you know, was always there. But the family unit was really what tied everybody.
Yeah.
And Barry and the Motown family, it really was like a family with all of its nuances, dysfunction, and even competitiveness and the success that came from it. It really, there were people who came into that family unit who'd never, you know, weren't comfortable with family. But the Gordys have a way of really being so positive and pushing you and really believing in yourself, I think it was always a great place for artists to be, because they sort of got a different scope of not just the business side, of course, but just this really point of wanting to achieve and to be creative. So when Rick would come over, he definitely was exposed to all of that. He was. And, you know, you could say some people, artists, use that. You know, some artists, when they're opportunistic, will use anybody to get anything.
Mm-hmm.
But the main thing I've seen in certain types of musicians that want it so badly that they'll do practically anything. But I digress. I mean, Rick, we went and we were on the tour, and he was having some issues on the tour. Tina was opening, and her star was kind of starting to come up, and his was getting a little bit convoluted because of just other stuff. So we were on that tour, and then we changed in the middle of it because the sales were down on Rick's tour. The promoter had booked the venues not selling out. So we left and jumped on Prince's tour, who he had been touring with Rick earlier on Rick's tour. So this time Prince was headlining. We jumped on, and then we met and forged a friendship. And, you know, he would solo my voice at the board. I remember he soloed it with Steve Farnoli, and then he came to me after one show, and he goes, "We soloed your voice tonight." I said, "On our soundboard?" And, you know, it was really funny. He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I really like your tone of your voice. I really like." So it started from there, and riding in cars and all sorts of craziness because, you know, we were really young, and crazy truck stop stories and things like that. So
that's so amazing to me that especially the Motown connection. Here's a question. Growing up, you know, in the 60s and 70s, you had to have been influenced by that sound, and it had to be crazy for you to, like, see these people that, you know, are influences. So I was wondering who was some of your influences.
I mean, you know, it's funny. Part of my life I lived in Ohio, and my mother had been a singer, and she used to sing in a lot of the mafia clubs in Kentucky and with Charles Brown and all those people. And then she was a Playboy bunny. It was really an interesting upbringing. So I will say I always had my ass covered. No, because the Italians had me all the way. No, it was really interesting because it was a great way of learning how the business worked. And everyone was they were like gypsies, you know. And the one thing, you know, my stepmother sang with Chet Baker, all these things. So what's so interesting is that you have people are gypsies. There's a gypsy spirit, a soul. And the one thing that the Gordy family did implement was that Barry consolidated all of that and created this solid foundation rooted for everybody to grow from. However, there has to always be a leader and people who really lead to the highest plateau, the highest mountain. And Barry had that, Prince had that. And when you're in the company of people who have it, you know they have it, and you're okay with giving your hand to them, because Barry never led me astray, and I don't believe that Prince did either. I think that my role in everything is one of, I don't need to claim the mountain, but I will definitely always help you as much as I can to get there. And I think that's why I was partially a background singer too, because I understand that need of those lead singers, and they have it. They want it. Like, they can just, So those times that I was working with Prince during some of his most, you know, I'd say he was churning out music really absolutely 2 and 3 songs a day if he needed to, if he wanted to.
Yeah.
And on that, you know, that's quite prolific. And with that, you know, we went to see the Mozart movie at one point, and I always kind of saw myself more so as the girl, the relationship he had, not the wife. I mean, I'm not saying I was his wife, but I sort of had a role of really being inspired by him and really seeing his vision. And, you know, it made me happy just to see him, you know, move over every obstacle. It was like, I'm the greatest cheerleader for my friends and people that I care about. I'll always rally you on. It doesn't matter. And I'll cuss you out sometimes, you know, when I think you're getting, you know, a little bit too big for your britches. And it's a reciprocal process. But truly, he just did remarkable things. And, you know, how he paired us up with all these different personalities, you know, Vanity and Susan and Brenda. And, you know,
God bless Vanity, man.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and no matter, she had it too. But no matter what, music was the number one love. And that's where the marriage was. It was like we were all just gypsies and like a big harem of music. And that's what it was. It was like, for Prince, music, I believe, was number one. Or God, because they were both the same.
Yeah, that's interesting because...
I mean, could you imagine a God in any other way but music? I think that's the perfect... for me, that's who, you know, I can hear music. And I was reading something the other day about chord structure and music theory. And, you know, there are certain sounds and pitches that you can play and things that evoke emotions. And they use it to heal people in therapies, all sorts of things. And Prince sometimes, I believe his music had healing capacity. And it also had a capacity to either make you love it or hate it. Or some people were so turned off by him and some people loved him. And I loved the confidence that we'd walk into restaurants in practically these crazy underwear and no problem. You know, he was confident. He didn't give a, you know, people laughed at him. We'd walk in places when he wasn't that popular and they would laugh at him. And I remember when my hair first got dyed blonde, we walked into a restaurant and it was platinum. And I said, oh my God, they're staring at me. And I said, I am not comfortable with all of this. And he was like, just ignore it. He goes, just, you know, like, screw it. Like, come on, let's go. So he would push you as well. You know what I mean? And it was great because he said, you're not used to it because you stand in the back a lot and you need to get comfortable with your power. And I think he brought that out in a lot of his artists. He'd help them find their power, you know, sort of like their holy grail.
Yeah, like what's your superpower? And then he would highlight that. And
he did.
You can really find that, like, that's spirit.
A great thing to say. What did he help us find our superpower?
Yeah, he's kind of like Professor X if you think about it. I had to bring in some nerdy because it is the Dirty Nerdy Show.
You're so right. He was, and you know that you how can you not love someone like that? There was just so much magic. It was really like I just felt we could do anything, and we did pretty much.
I envy anybody who got to be in the studio with him while he's like in that mode of just like. And you were there during the 1999 sessions, right?
Yes.
So you got to hear a lot of those songs, including the song that was just released, Moonbeam Levels.
Moonbeam Levels.
And
I think I'm singing on it, actually.
Oh really?
I remember recalling doing a lower, doing some harmony on that. But, you know, I don't know.
Well, let's talk about album credits really quick because... This I found really interesting. On 1999, you're credited as JJ. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to you read the liner notes to Purple Rain, and it's Jill Jones is Love.
Yes.
And that is just you really, if you think about that, right? And you really meditate on that's. You had to have meant a lot to him.
I did, and I know I did. I mean, it wasn't... he was very private about some things, and, like he said once to me that, there are public romances and there are private ones.
Yeah.
And, your girlfriends are like, he's just running a game and whatever. But it was okay with me because I never felt that I was the only one, but I felt I was the only me. And that was all that mattered. And he knew that. He'd say that about me. And I think I loved him unconditionally, maybe more than anybody at that age. I mean, I really trusted him implicitly with my life. And I believed in him. And that's okay. I mean, I think everybody should have that once or twice. It wasn't like, I don't feel like I surrendered too much. I mean, as I got older and got a little bitter about certain things, I started, hindsight, you start to have a bias confirmation theory where you create a different, your pride gets involved in certain things. But the reality is I was there because I wanted to be there. I believed in this person, and there was nothing that he could do to me that I didn't really allow or accept, and vice versa. I mean, I wasn't a saint either with certain things, but I do think that if anything of us coming together, there was love, which for me means creativity. Yeah. There's something born from it, and I think that we got each other that way. I think why it was so hard parting, that was like a big chunk that just went missing, and I always missed it.
Yeah. I mean,
but my Scorpio moon got real bitchy, and my own pride about things. But it's okay. I mean, it's fine.
My favorite Jill Jones story with like Jill Jones attitude, because that's a thing in Prince circles. It's like, you don't mess with Jill Jones,
Really? Is it?
Yeah. That's
Why?
I don't know. It's just
because the sister comes out. Is that what it is? Everyone's like, Some people are like, I thought she was a nice little, no, yeah.
Everybody's a little scared of Jill Jones.
Yeah.
But I was like,
yeah, he knew that too, because he said I was spoiled, and I said, you spoiled me.
No, my favorite story is from when you guys first met, and you're like looking at him like, dude, the stage is too small.
Yeah.
So can you tell a little bit about that? Because that's funny to me.
We were passing each other in the hallway, and he was coming down because he was going on, and we had like 5 minutes for a sound check or whatever. I remember I had on this red ice skating dress because it was really cool looking. I don't know why I was wearing an ice skating outfit. It was really cute, tight, skinny, like really, up to my butt. It was adorable. But we passed each other, and they're like, Tina, this is Prince, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm standing there rolling my eyes. But I think because I was such a impetuous kind of young person, what was I, 17, 18, I just rolled my eyes, and then he was like, I said, we could have had a bigger stage. Like, thanks for that stage. I mean, what were we going to like pile? I said something really smart, Alec. Well, it stayed in his head. And I think that was really where and the bandmates since have talked about it from Tina's band, the older guys, because they were like my brothers. They were like, they knew immediately that was going to be a spark. And they would watch me on the tour, and I'd go, well, I'm getting in this car, and then Prince would be in the car. So it was just really funny. They had their eyeballs open.
Do you reckon, because, people, they were a little afraid to talk back to Prince, and I feel like you weren't.
No, because, we even had conversations, and in one car we rode in, he was like, well, where are you from? And I said, I'm from California. It was like, I didn't stress the Ohio thing. Yeah. And then he said, well, where are you from? And he goes, Minneapolis. I was like, where on earth is that? And it was just, I was as dry and sarcastic as he was. So it was like a perfect mirror. And that is what I really believe, that when you meet somebody, and if you happen to mirror them, you can't help but be attracted to them because it's really yourself. So the energy at that time was kind of spunky young people, I was a little bit, I'd been around the block as far as the music business, or so I thought. So, and I'd had celebrities in my home, so meeting somebody else was like, yeah. And I remember my mother was like, are you going to go watch his show? And I was like, no. I was still steaming over the stage thing. She goes, Jill, he's going to be a huge star one day. She goes, I can feel it. And I said, really? She was like, yeah. I said, well, I don't know. I said, I was like, well, we'll see. And I was just always a very sarcastic person. But that was part of the charm. And
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Prince Jill Jones is not impressed, yo.
No, and I think actually if that happened, I think that's with most men. If you actually meet a man and you're usually just kind of like rude to him, he'll follow you everywhere.
Basically,
if they're
yeah.
Used to it always works, and it's not like it was calculated. I just know that happens, and only because youth gives you that liberty to do such a thing, because you're not afraid of losing somebody, because you don't know what's ahead, so you're free. You're really free to be yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm learning a little bit about age today.
Oh, really? Yes, it's your birthday.
Yeah. 29, which is,
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Close to 30, but it's not a big deal. You're just leaving your 30s. Your 20s. But you know what?
It's scary for me.
Enjoy this one. Don't moan about it.
Oh,
You've
no.
got one more year till you hit 30, so enjoy 29.
Well, here's my thing. When I was born, they told my mother that I wouldn't live past the age of 7. I was
said that.
Yeah, the doctors, they said that, and I was raised, not only by my mother but by my grandparents, and they weren't having that, So,
and that's a great thing, because had they been opposite in thinking, they could have just grieved the full 7 years that they thought you were only going to live.
Yeah, and I'm so thankful to them for teaching me, how to, be a human, and just and wheelchair or not, dishes got to be done,
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that you should write a book about that, on how to parent that way. Your mom, in that, to be so young to have had that attitude, and of course your grandparents, what a blessing. I mean, that's amazing. Not everybody gets that.
Yeah, I think, you see a lot of people who are disabled, and they have this very sheltered sort of, life, because, the parents are afraid to let the child live, and then they grow up and they're very sheltered, and they don't have social skills, or, whatever.
No, you're right, but it's not just the parents. I remember while raising my daughter in New York, when we lived there, she was about 6, and that in school where they have the blind kids, and then they have the deaf kids, and you can already see that at 5 they're usually playing and whatever, but by 6 and 7 they start to corral the other ones and keep them at a different table in the cafeteria and all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
They just do it in a very subtle but pretty obvious way.
It's subtle segregation.
It is. And so one day I got a call at work. I was working in advertising, and they called and said, you have to come to the school. It's about your daughter, Azucena. I was like, well, what do you do? So I went, and they said, we are having a very serious problem, because apparently she was on the playground playing with the kids, and there was one little girl she was playing tag with. And I said, so what's the problem? And they said, she's blind. And I said, now we could look at it a couple ways. I don't think she was being malicious at all, because she had also had a friend when she was younger who...
I think she was being inclusive.
She was. And because when she was younger, we had another friend who my friend's child was born without hands. Well, my daughter didn't even think anything of it. She was like grabbing the girl by her arms and saying, come on, let's go play. So when this happened at the school, I said, you guys are weird. I said, and they just were so offended and they thought it was just horrible. And then, sadly, I said, well, you know what's going to happen? That little girl is not going to be in the group. You guys are going to push her all the way, into the, and sure enough, years went by and the girl was over with the rest of the kids who were blind, and not that there was anything wrong with it, but she was excluded from so many things.
Yeah, it's like you want to group, the disabled with the disabled. But like I was
like, okay, tag may not be the best game, but they'll figure it out and let them work it out. Maybe the little girl will go, hey, can we do something that I want to do?
We're very sort of like, we figure shit out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that, but I shouldn't say that. You know what? Whatever. Screw it.
Yeah. So, I was fascinated with your story and how your parents and your family raised you. I thought, wow, that's pretty incredible. I mean, when your mom, was she told she had spina bifida before that was what was going to happen when she was pregnant?
No. What happened is my mom started hemorrhaging. She had like a normal pregnancy the whole time, and then she started hemorrhaging, and then she had emergency C-section, and because she had the emergency C-section is because I'm alive. That's why I'm alive.
Thank God.
Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
And immediately they were like, hey, he's got spina bifida. And then at 6 days old, they do the thing where they close up the spine, and they did that, and then they told my mom, well, here's what could happen. He could develop hydrocephalus, which is fluid on the brain.
Right.
And they were like, okay, well, if that happens, all we got to do is we just got to put another shunt in his head, and then he'll be all right.
Mm-hmm.
And they did, because sure enough, a couple days later, the fluid developed, and so at 9 days old, I had my second surgery. They put the shunt in.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, and I've been fighting ever since. But, it's a good fight. And I don't ever want to, give the impression that my life is, like, super hard. Because, dude, I'm sitting here talking to Jill Jones. Like, my life is okay. You know what I mean? Like, I'm doing all right. But, there's been a struggle. But, I always I just want people to know that, disabled
and what
or
about
not.
your love life? How has having this affected your love life? Truthfully,
it's it's been an adventure. I find that and we can cut this out, or not. I don't know. I find that women are, they're curious about the wheelchair.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, he's very confident. Let's see what he got.
I once went out with a guy who didn't have any legs.
Oh, really?
I was like 15. And I mean, part of my thing, because here's the other thing. I also don't give preferential treatment either.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the thing was he was really cute, but he had a car. So it was kind of like, it wouldn't have mattered if he was like 16 with legs, whatever. He had a car. It's like, you're with your friends, your girlfriend's like, he's got a car. Let's go.
Jill, you're going to give it away. People don't know that we can drive.
Oh, yeah, totally. And, so I admired, actually, his confidence going into places. And it was really such a wild thing. My family's reaction was more, not my Ohio family had more of an issue. They were really the old grandparents. But so that going back to even like Prince, you could say there in the view of the public, he was not the leading man you would cast at that time in the 70s, that everyone would say, oh, this guy's going to be the biggest sex symbol. But there's a sexiness that I tapped into, and I tap into people for all sorts of very different reasons. Yeah. I can, I just have a detector, and if it clicks with me, it clicks. It's about clicking. And I think his fans felt that too. I think so. When I asked you about your love life, it was kind of like, Prince spoke a lot about love, and then what I think is so beautiful, he got into the whole real reality of the truth of it, about how it is just love. It's not just their sexual stuff. But then you're right. I think that he obviously was the choice that you would identify with when you were younger. And not even obviously, there were two paths you could take, and you chose the renegade one. And I think, to say, I'm here and I matter. And that's what Prince's music did. We're here and we matter, and you need to listen to us.
Yep, that's exactly my motto. Like, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And, as far as like my love life has went,
it's like everybody else's, I would imagine, on some level. Yeah.
All my moves came from Prince. Let's just recognize that. For real. Like,
good moves. All my moves came from it too.
Like, well, like, I would listen to Insatiable, like, right before dates.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna get it. And I have a funny story to tell you after we wrap, because I don't want this out in the public ever. Like, ever.
Okay.
But,
all right.
But I will tell you, and Katie knows what it is, and Katie's like, oh my God. I can hear her when she's editing this, and she's going to be like, oh my God, you told Jill Jones. And I'm going to be like, yeah, Katie, I told Jill Jones. But yeah, that's just, he just had a confidence about him, and it gave me confidence.
Mm-hmm.
It gave me, because of him, I picked up a guitar, and
wow.
I'm going to tell you this, and this might blow your mind, but you probably heard it 1,000 times. The first guitar lick I ever picked up, that I ever learned was da-da, 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 da-da. And you know what that is. She's always in my hair. That's the first thing I ever learned.
You actually did do that one?
Yeah. That's the first thing I ever learned on guitar, because that was like my favorite.
Wait a minute. How did you learn that one? You must have really just... I love that guitar line, actually.
Well, what I would do is I would take the Prince records every day after school, and my mom got me a guitar, and I would turn the gain up,
Yeah.
Because, he had, like, I don't even know what was on his pedal board. That's a question for you anyway. But, yeah, because I'm a gearhead, so I love things like that. But I would sit there and I would try and like learn things. I would try to learn like the things to Gold, the song Gold and
yeah,
and all of those songs, and just like I never really got the Purple Rain solo down, but it's all good.
That's good that you tried it,
'cause it's super hard, man.
Yeah.
But like my favorite as far as like his guitar work. He did there was a concert for the Purple Rain tour in Syracuse, New York. 20-minute long version of Purple Rain.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And he's just going off on guitar, man. And it's just like, wow. And I got to see him in 2011. And that was, I promise you, that was like the greatest night. I was like, oh my God, I'm breathing the same air as Prince. Like, how is this my life?
Right.
Kind of like I'm interviewing Jill Jones. How is this my life? And, it's just, it was something I'll never forget. And
yeah.
I learned so much musically just from listening to every record, even your record. I think with your first record, the Claire Fisher,
yes.
intro on Mia Boca, is like my favorite work that he did with Prince.
Yeah, it was killer. I have to agree.
Especially the video, and on with the video with the voiceover, and he's like, on the first hot day, I created something a little too hot.
Yes, that's so cool, because Mondino, that goes to show you that collaboration where geniuses get together, people who are just creatively free, Jean-Baptiste Mondino got it and put that overdub in. And then at the end, it was so ironic that he said, baby, they just ain't ready for you yet. And that was almost like quite a statement, because it was really true. The record didn't do well at all. And we were really
Look at it now, though.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw Prince recently, like I spoke about it. I said, well, all I know, he goes, because he told me that he got all the masters back and whatever. And I said, we did something really great together. I said, and he goes, yeah. He goes, but I said, I wished everybody would have gotten it then, because for him, he put his heart and soul into it deeply.
And this is 30 years, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 30 years, man, since...
Like, that record, to me, was as if he gave me the best, most diverse, variety-filled banquet of songs. And I could carry them all off.
He really did.
G-spot to freaking gospel. And... he had, for me, when I listened to the album, I'm like, wow, he had a lot of faith in me. And, and then for us to go into, people were like, oh, they had disagreements on the second album. And yeah, there were disagreements because, we were being confronted with the whole 90s Belle Biv DeVoe stuff. Okay, it was fun. It was whatever. It was like Kool-Aid or, it was sugary. And I think that he started to try to catch up with that, and he did some great stuff. However, for me and him, it's like taking me out of an Azadine Alaya dress and putting me into something from Forever 21. It really just didn't work. Yeah. And so when you tried to fluff me up into like bimbo mode,
the Boom Boom video.
Working. Yeah, Boom Boom was we worked on it, and he directed that, and we did okay, but there's still, we had an issue where he wanted the guy's underwear, my underwear, the guy to put in my face or something. And we had a little bit of on the set, I was like, in my face. I was like, I might do that privately, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it on film. But, it's like, to be honest, it was like, okay, now how much of what goes on are we going to like, what do I have to pander to? I mean, what I do privately with somebody is fine, but, to pander completely to the lower norms of just sexuality, when I feel that Prince's height of sexuality was about the provocativeness, and it never felt dirty. But when a woman just stands there naked, and for some, those were our biggest things. And I think at that point he had started, there were different women around who came into the camp who were like, fuck it, I want to be famous. I'll take my clothes off. I'll do whatever. And I think there was just a taste level thing that shifted from Vanity, Susan, Brenda, and even the earlier women, Lisa. There was still a sort of distance from like, Wendy and everybody. They weren't trashy girls. But I think that he realized, okay, now I'm just going to sell the sex. So, and it's okay. They're beautiful women. But I think that people really respected when he had super talented women who worked with him.
Yeah.
They
and
really
he came
that.
back to that. He came back to that later on. Mm-hmm. If you look at like the later, like New Power Generation stuff.
He did.
Like, and my favorite live band that he ever had was the 88 Love Sexy tour.
Yeah, I mean, and even when Maite was dancing with him, there still wasn't a trashiness about her.
Yeah,
there was still
always respect to her.
Thing. She was sexy, but untouchable. And that was, but when it was, I don't know. I mean, and I could be judging this all wrong, but for me, some of the others, and I don't want to name names, but if they wanted to be famous so much, and they got it. Some of them got it.
Yeah.
But the other women that I mentioned actually all loved him. Like, and I'm not saying they didn't love him. I can't say how people love. I don't want to get in trouble for this, but it became easier, I think, for him to juggle women who wanted maybe career more than him.
Yeah.
I think maybe it became easier to deal with emotionally. But I do believe that I mean, hell, everybody loved Prince, even the people who worked for him. I mean, he really took up a great amount of time in people's lives, from Alan Leeds, Gwen, for their children, Chick, his kids. Prince was number one in everybody's life. I mean, if he called, you'd get up, you'd go. But everybody loved
Chick was
him.
the
My
big
uncle,
bodyguard, right?
Yeah, he was. There was a love for him, and everybody was in love with him. Male, women, children, everybody.
I wanted to tell you this story, okay? So, I have a Patreon in the community in YouTube. Smaller channels like myself, we use Patreon, right? Mm-hmm. And basically, you know, people, they give us, you know, a little bit of money to help make the show better.
I looked at that.
And and I have this friend now named Caleb, and he's a big Texas dude, right? Mm-hmm. And I was telling him the other day, and he didn't get the reference because he doesn't know. You know, you either know Prince or you don't, you know?
Right.
And I'm like, you're basically the big bodyguard dude from the Purple Rain era to me. Right. And he's like, what? And I'm like, never mind, man, you don't get it. But yeah, I was like, but yeah, I won't like ride on your back though, dude.
Yeah, no, but you could.
I could. I definitely could. I'd fall and bust my ass. I mean, I wouldn't have to worry about getting up, but you know.
Yeah.
That's just, you know, things like that, you know. I don't know. I just wanted to share that story with you because it made me laugh when you mentioned Chick.
Yeah, no, everybody they committed, you know, and I think the early days were about commitment, and it really was about building stuff, and we were all happy to do it, you know.
I have a question, because you said you compared Prince to, you know, the likes of Berry Gordy. Do you think that was his mission with Paisley Park Records? To have that sort of, you know, yeah. Because just looking at, like, because I've seen, like, early, like, you know how they'll put out, like, the promos of, like, use this record studio, you know, whatever. And, you know, he's got, like, the top of the line this, and, you know, and you're on the label, and you know, everybody else that was on the label, and it's just, I think, man, Paisley Park really should have been like Motown.
It should have been, and I think that, you know, I remember Barry called me during all of it at one point, and right when he was taking Denise, and she had left, but he basically was saying he was concerned that Prince wasn't pacing himself properly. And I said, okay, well, I'll have him call you. And I don't know what their conversation was about. I never really asked.
So there's a Dave Chappelle sketch.
Mm-hmm.
Did he really make pancakes, and how good were the pancakes? Like,
he did make pancakes. That's true. And I guess he was good at it because, you know, mine were always, his were nice and thin. You know, they weren't, mine were doughy always. So I was always kind of amazed at that. But then again, I would eat a pancake around Prince because I was like, oh, God, I don't want to get bigger. I was a big girl. So it was like, you know, I was, like I said, I used to go and, like, eat in the bathroom a bag of Doritos. Like, so you wouldn't know. You know, not that he had anything about my weight. He never, ever said, oh, well, one time he did have a wild concoction that I needed to get plastic surgery, implants like Brigitte Nielsen, and then dye my hair and look like Elvis. And I was like, And, yeah, he was just being really kind of mean around that time, but that was weird. I was like, I am not going to walk around with fake boobs. No way. You know, I'm kind of a feminist, and I would say that, you know, no. Hell no.
That's one thing I respect. I respect that about you, that you're very openly feminist, and that's important to me because, and I've had this argument with people. They were like, well, his music is misogynistic, and I'm like, no, it's not.
No, because I thought he empowered women to be the ones who could demand it.
Yeah, like
If I could speak about sex that way, because yeah, G-spot was something he and I really literally had been on a plane, and we had been looking in a magazine, and there was an article about, and we talked about this, and then subsequently the song came. So, it's like things happen, you talk about it, but my sexuality, he had such a great way of almost jumping into your body and thinking the way you would think anyway when he would write the songs. So why certain songs later when we tried to do them, if they were for other women, it was like a bad blood transfusion. If they were supposed to go to, or they were just generic concepts, what worked best for us was when he knew it fit me like a glove. And yeah, I mean, I empowered my own sexuality. I know what I want in that department. And I also am a very tender person, and I will always have your back, which is why, I'm just like that. And I want to be feminine, though. This is the funny thing. In all of my demands, I still want to be treated like a woman.
yeah, I love that about you, that
Thank you.
you've always been, y'all don't understand, Jill Jones is the baddest, okay?
And I think the weirdest thing is I think that Violet Blue is a very interesting song because it's a take on, I had stories in my journal.
That's my favorite song, by the way.
Thank you. I shared stories with him. He read my journal easily anytime he wanted. I had written like a movie idea of a guy who controls a woman with the sound of his music on a piano. And it was like a short, and I wanted to do it, and we were talking. And then so Violet Blue kind of came from, he was kind of going through this thing where he was dating a certain someone, and there was like a choice. It was like, so sometimes I never quite knew from my journal what he captured, where I was parlaying my ambivalence of so many different rivals in the game and where I stood, because I was also growing up too and having different men come at me and making those choices to leave and feeling guilty about going out with other people. And it was really kind of tricky. And then that ownership thing comes into it. Like,
it makes me think of that one line in the song.
Huh?
It makes me think of that one line in the song.
Which one?
Is he married? Does he want to be? I wish I could tell from holding hands.
Yeah. And yeah, it's like all of that was happening. And, and then it went into the whole, he was getting engaged, and he, told me that he had to be engaged for a while. And I was like, okay. And, because I had this amazing penthouse in New York, and all this was happening when I went to create the album and work on it. And he had other things he was working on, and, his relationships. But we had a real strain in that because suddenly I was pushed into this position of being now secretive. Like before private, we were private, but then to be pushed into being secretive, that actually bothered me.
Yeah.
To that, therefore, like somebody I've always been with privately, we didn't speak about it to a ton of people. And then now all of a sudden, shh, you have to be quiet because this one, you can't let anybody know. And that causes a lot of rifts considering her sister was in the band. Do you understand? Like, that's the reality. And then everybody knows everybody. Everybody's saying, oh, he was in New York, so, or I flew to France, this one flew, Sheila flew, it's like that kind of shit actually is where, the women, there was a great amount of solidarity between us, but a lot of unspoken words, maybe was it? Yeah.
Tell it, Jill Jones.
Hey, if I was him, I have a bunch of women too.
Man, I'm
at 26
straight up
years old. I mean, to imagine all that love. I mean,
and
really,
it had to be crazy for him to
to
get all the admiration at such a young age. Get his first record deal at the age that he did.
Yeah.
And just, That's a lot of stuff to deal with, man.
Yeah.
Like, like,
My mother used to say, you girls are going through things women in their 40s haven't even gone through. And, because there was a lot of adjustment. And I'm a gypsy, as I said, and I'm kind of free, whatever. I remember when Stevie Nicks came on the scene, it was a party we were having, and she was there, and to make a long story short, she had fallen in the bathroom. And I went and I helped her up. I picked her up, and she was like, oh, you're such a good hostess. Thanks for putting this party, because I was kind of commissioned to make her comfortable. I had to take her flowers and do some things to make her feel comfortable in Minneapolis. And I did not like that. That was like taking it too far. So, but I did it. And but then she felt she's such a good hostess. And I told Prince, I said, she fucking called me a fucking hostess. And he thought that was the funniest thing ever.
oh
He
man,
fell out. Like, he grabbed his stomach. He was laughing so hard. And I was like, dude, really?
You know what? I'm gonna say it. Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac was better anyway.
Yeah, right.
No, I'm kidding. I love Fleetwood Mac. Stevie Nicks, don't hate me.
No, I mean, I like Stevie, but she was kind of not with it. I don't think she was really with herself.
Yeah.
But she was sweet. She's ever so thankful. But then I remember thinking, am I hostess? Who am I in this story? I'm like helping, and, and that it's just so bizarre. It was like the roles had just turned into, I don't know. I was like, I'm not nice. I'm sweet, but I'm not a nice person. Sweet, not nice all the time.
Oh man, Joe Jones about to punch somebody.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it was funny. It was all a learning experience, definitely.
I have a question about 1999.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm jumping all over the place, but nerves. For 1999, like, what is that? You get the call. He's like, "Hey, come sing with me," and you go to Sunset, right? And,
no, it was in his house.
Oh, it was in his house?
And I was upstairs in bed sleeping.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he came and he shook me. Hey, can you come downstairs? I want you to sing on something.
Really?
Yeah.
That's how that...
And he called Lisa over, and she came over. She drove. We worked a little bit on it before for a while he was working on it. He wanted me to sit and listen. And then he had her come over. She drove in from the city out to Chanhassen.
Wait, was this the Purple House?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, the Purple House. We're getting a story about the Purple House, you guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, of course, there were over things and overdub and stuff happened back out at Sunset Sound. But Free and 1999, a lot of that originated there. I know singing all the riffs and stuff for Party and Free Party, that was in the Kiowa Trail.
Man, that's just... Man, because that's one of my favorite Prince records. Everyone loves Purple Rain.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Purple Rain, and that was my introduction. But real Prince fans, they move on from that.
True. That's true. And this is like, it's amazing because he came off the heels of Controversy. So you could see the momentum building. And then he went immediately into putting out 1999, where it was a very concerted effort, of a clear goal in mind of that. He totally was in the moment, and he stayed. I believe that, when you're in the creation mode, everything you have around you is just kind of clicking. It's in synchronicity.
It's like,
and
everything's
during that
firing.
time, he would come and pick me up at my parents' house and throw rocks at my window, or then soon it just got to the point where the black car would just drive up the driveway, and I got so good I could sometimes just hear the sound of the car and wake up and go. And then a lot of Lady Cab Driver, I believe, it was never said to me, but I drove him everywhere through that time. He had just gotten his new BMW. It was here in LA, and I drove it. I drove that freaking car all the time. And I drove him around. And, you know, he was finishing up Vanity and The Time and doing some end work at Sunset Sound. But pretty much through that summer, and then I moved in July back to Minneapolis. But I was like his left arm.
You think Prince was a homebody?
Yes. He was like, I keep saying this, and I don't want people to be offended, but Prince for me was like Groundhog's Day. And he was a creature, as much as he wandered creatively, freely, the structure in his life was the things that he would do. Like you'd go to Minneapolis, you'd get in the car, he'd wake you up at like 5 or 4 or something. You'd drive, he'd show you his little haunts, his town, his places. And everybody I've spoken with, and women, that story never changes. It's like a repeat. It's on repeat.
He's really a creature of habit.
On that note, yes.
Yeah.
Because there was a real strong attachment to Minneapolis. And even when he was here in LA, I mean, there were certain things he would do specifically, but I think that LA could sometimes get away from him. But, you know, it was maybe for humor's sake, but it's a very, I don't know. Some of the clubs he went to here in LA during that time were kind of really shallow Euro trash bars.
Yeah.
They really were. I went to some of the funky cool stuff like the Rhythm Lounge and, you know, Puta, what was this one I went to? Some hole in the wall. And soon he started branching out a little when he maybe met Kat and different people. And I don't know, but yeah, it was an interesting time.
Yeah. We're running a little bit long, and I still have things that...
Yeah, go ask quickly. Yes, no, yes.
we're running long, but I really want to get this. Nile Rodgers, right?
Yes.
One of the greatest guitarists in the history of funk.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just be real. So is Prince.
Yeah. Yes.
But they're both great at creating hit music, and you've worked with both. What are some of the similarities and differences in how they worked?
Their music. They have a strong commitment and connection to what they're creating. And when they're in that zone, they are totally alive and receptive to the needs of their songs and their music. They know what it needs intuitively.
Yeah. That's just... The Nile Rodgers, like, he's another big influence of mine. So when I was researching and I saw that you did all this work with Nile, I was like, oh my God, you know?
And they're masters of their own songs.
Yeah.
I mean, their own sound. They created these sounds and they stand by them, and they knew that was, you know what I'm saying? They have their sounds, distinct sounds. It's really hard to define yourself with such a sound. And I mean, both of them should be held in high esteem for that.
Yeah, you listen to like Bowie's Let's Dance, and then it's like, you know that's Nile. Yeah,
they took instruments and made them have a voice equivalent to like a pop star. You go, oh, that's Nile. Is that Nile on that record? You know, it wasn't like singing words, but they made their instruments sang.
Yeah, and
you know?
And even with Prince, you can listen to, you know, the song that he did with Kate Bush.
Yes.
For her Red Shoes album. See, I know my stuff. And he and
I watched the old Red Shoes movie together, funny enough.
Did you?
One of my favorites. Yeah. Danny Kaye. Yeah.
Oh, man. See, I would love to, like, go to the movies with Prince, man.
Yeah. He once took me to see Frances, the movie with that one actress, and he turned in the middle of it, and he goes, if you keep acting the way you do, he goes, I'm going to give you a lobotomy. And I was like, really? Thank you. I'm going to do what they did to Francis Farmer. I was like, yeah, okay, thanks. So he had a wicked sense of humor. But he must have been serious about that.
He sounds like he was very funny, and as somebody who uses humor,
he was, and he'd pull a voice in a second and be talking in some old man voice or whatever. Ooh, I love the old man voice. Sometimes I only wanted to talk to the old man.
Yeah, that's hilarious. That reminds me of my mentor, Knight, Tone. He's a musician too, but I met him on Yahoo Voice when I was young because my dad wasn't really around. So when I was young, I didn't really have a father figure until I met Tone, and he's gonna kick me for like, you told Jill Jones? I'm like, yeah, dude, I told Jill Jones, deal with it. But yeah, he's very much like that, and Knight wouldn't show his face for the longest time. And for like a brief period back when I first met him, because I heard stories of Prince going online and just being secretive, and just messing with people. And I'd be like, bruh, is you Prince though? And
shoot.
And every time he'd be like, no, but he always does voices. He does like Smeagol and can pull the old man voice and yeah, so like that's something that I hold dear,
Yeah, I mean, I love those facets of people.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the new single because it's so good and it's out now. So go get it. We'll put a link. Can we put a link? We'll put a link down so you guys can buy it.
Thank you.
Yeah, anytime I can help Jill Jones out, I got you, man. But yeah, we'll put a link. The song is called "I Miss You," and I wonder what that's about.
Yeah, it definitely was my way to pay my own requiem, my own tribute to the man who had such a huge influence in my life. And even though, and not just that, the song is expansive enough that it really grabs into the depths, reaches into the depths of many people that we miss and are losing. And not even that, even just with heartbreak. You can break up with somebody and you really miss their presence. So, and in this case with Prince, I felt that for so long I'd wanted to, I kind of felt I got a little butthurt about not being asked to participate in anything with the revolution. And I was really, really not cool with that. I've since found out that Mark Brown had my back. So thank you, Brown Mark. I fucking love you, dude. And Matt Fink. But to be honest with you, I had to do this. I had to put my voice to it, and I could not continue to let anybody define what my relationship was with him and what he meant with me. As I said, there were private moments. They will always stay private, and but I'm not a fucking secret. I was an illegitimate child when I was born, and they didn't even put my father's name on my birth certificate. He dashed too. Prince was very helpful in my dealing with that, and that's a whole other story. But so for me, that's been a running theme. So the minute you touch that thing that I'm of no value, you hit, that's my Achilles. So I did respond kind of in a not so great way online towards them, and maybe it wasn't the best, but it was very Jill Jones. And I just want to say that all the dynamics that existed after his death were very similar dynamics that existed when he was alive during some of that time. So hopefully people get a clear idea of how everybody interacted. It wasn't always Motown Hitsville, Paisley Park, that had its dysfunction. So I had to do this because it was so important for me to let him know in the ether how I felt. Yeah. Because I feel that the angels granted me that last time with him in February, and a lot of people didn't get that, but I'm so freaking grateful that I got that. And, and I thank, Denise for that too, because it all centered around that time. She meant a hell of a lot to me too. I don't have to see people all the time in my life to know where my love is for them. You know, sometimes you can't be every day with somebody. That's cool.
Yeah.
But you like the fact that you know they're on the planet and they're happy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I Miss You came from. And I collaborated with my friend George. It was an organic thing that came together, George Claiborne. He had a young daughter who worked with me because I was very emotional in writing this. And I learned a lot from a young person, which I found very interesting because Prince was always working with young people. So this 22-year-old just helped with the writing and fleshing out everything, and even in getting me motivated again, because it really was, the motivation was not just Prince, but also giving back a little and hoping to open that up for somebody else's world. You know, she was, it's so interesting what God sends you in people in the form of healing.
Yeah.
Kalia. Yeah, she's an amazing young girl who got me to get off my ass and write again. So I thank her and her father, George.
That's amazing. And the video, oh my God, the video.
Seth Niblet, his mother was Malia from, Brides of Frankenstein. And I knew Malia, and she said I reminded her a lot of herself when she was younger. She had told Seth this years ago, before she passed. But what was interesting is that he decided to just encapsulate the whole era of time that I was with Prince, those iconic things, because Prince always tried, and it was so detailed. And that's what we wanted to look at, every aspect, and reflect how he approached projects where not a hair is out of place. And, that was what it was about, because he would, okay, we need this, and we're doing this. It was like with the Boom Boom video and even the underwear. I mean, it's like everything had a reason and a connection, and connecting the dots. If you can defend that and show evidence of why you need that, and that's what I learned from him. So this whole project, Seth was a fan like you. He knew things about Prince and his eye for detail and the taste level. I just wanted to highlight that. And I think he did a great job in bringing that to the front.
Man, it's just, this has been, wow, just a lot for me, like, just to hear you tell your story. And I know I didn't get to everything that I wanted to get to, but what?
We could do it again sometime.
Yeah. You are always welcome on here, even if you just want to talk. It doesn't have to be recorded. I extend my friendship to you.
Yeah. Same here.
And I look forward to calling you friend. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
It really does mean a lot to me. Guys, go get the new record. I still call them records because I'm old school.
Well, the EP will be out in a couple of weeks, but the single is I Miss You, and that's out. You can, if you don't want to get the EP, you can just get the single.
Get the EP.
Yeah.
Do the EP, y'all.
Yeah.
Don't be cheap. Get the EP.
Yes.
But yeah. Thank you so much, Jill Jones. You are.
You got to tell me that story.
Oh, I will. As soon as I press stop, I'm telling you the story.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Jill Jones.
Thank you.
You are the baddest on the planet.
Dirty Show. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is ChristopherNotWalken. That's Jill Jones. Guys, this was the best birthday ever. And we'll see you later in another episode. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.